There we go. Okay, Shauna, is it working now? I think it should be. Sorry about that. No, it needs to go there. Thank you. It was right there. No, it won't. I had it. I got it. There we go. Shauna, is it working now? Oh, good. I'm so grateful. All right, we're going to start in 2 minutes. I'm so sorry you had to sit through 6 minutes of me being silent and dancing. I was dancing to good music, though. It was pretty fun. So I hope everyone survived the snowpocalypse. I was working from home wearing a onesie. It was pretty great, not gonna lie. I enjoyed it. All right, I'm gonna put some music back on for the next minute. We'll have a dance party. Yes, I do. Oh, we gotta play that again because it was so good. All right, so, oh, great. Hey, Jenny, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to start in just a minute. I have a question that someone sent to me that I'm going to start with, but if you have any questions for me, you can go ahead and start typing them in the little text box. I guess it's over here. I don't know. You know where it is. You can tweet them at me, or if you prefer to keep them private from other people, if we're friends on Facebook, you can send me a direct message. I'll get it however you want to. Send your questions my way so I can start answering them for you. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We're going to start. If I can turn this music off, hey. All right, so, hey guys, welcome to Office Hours. I am Kate Lumpkin. For those of you who don't know me, I am so glad that you're here. If you do know me, I'm also so glad that you're here. So here's the deal with Office Hours. You can ask me any questions you want about the entertainment industry, particularly about the casting process, social media, personal branding, any of those things. I will answer the questions to the best of my ability. Just a reminder, we know this industry is ever-changing and full of opinions. My opinions are my own, and they are based on my own personal experiences and nothing more. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. If it works for you, great. If you're like, that's stupid, great, that's stupid. But I have worked for quite some time in this industry in all sorts of different capacities, and I have a lot of friends who also do, and a lot of colleagues and peers who do. So if I don't feel like I can answer your question to the best of my abilities, I will take the time this week to ask someone who I think knows better than I do, and I'll be sure to get that answer to you next week. Okay? So that is the kind of lowdown about what we're doing today. Oh, is repeating? Is that just fine? Never mind, got it? Is everything working? I think it should be. Hey, Kate, I can hear you, but it's repeating. Me too, thanks, never mind, got it. Jenny, did you get it as well? Is everything working out? I don't want it to be repeating. Maybe it's... No, that should be good. I think it should be fine. But let me know if you're still having any problems with sounds or anything, just write it in the little box. Okay. Oh, good, I'm so glad, Jenny. Okay, great. So, I just want to start. I got a question this week that was emailed to me, and it was about politics and Facebook and the entertainment industry. And the question was something along the lines of, how do you feel about posting personal information about your political beliefs on Facebook or social media, and does that impact your brand, your chances? Does it hurt you in the industry? Those kind of things. And I think this is a really great question. It kind of encompasses more than just politics, but definitely politics for sure. Here's my opinion on that. If you are using social media as a way to present your brand and yourself to potential employers, directors, casting directors, all of those kind of things, everything that you post is a reflection of how people will see you, right? I mean, we know this to be true. And so if your political beliefs are a very strong part of what your brand is, who you believe you are, who you are as an artist, then I say post it, knowing that you could potentially alienate a lot of people. And that's fine. If it's a huge part of who you are as an artist, then you need to honor that and you need to share it. I will say, though, if you don't feel that political activism is a large part of your process of who you are as an artist, any of those kind of things, then I really don't see the need to do it, especially if, oh, great question, especially if you think that it could potentially alienate people in your world and in your industry. Again, I'm not telling you not to share your beliefs, but I do think that it influences how people see you as a human being and what you represent. So for me, it's a no. I know what I believe. I also know that posting on Facebook 90% of the time isn't going to change someone's mind, right? Like, we know what we believe, and that's our own personal journey. So unless you really, really, really feel strongly that it influences you as an artist, I just wouldn't post it. That's just me. That's my 5 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents, 99 cents. I don't know. That's my dollar about that. I know it's hard sometimes because we care so deeply and so passionately about people and our government and the fact that we get to have a say in it. But I just, I think it's better not, unless you need to. All right, so I just got another question. I'm going to pull it up right now. Let's see. For your office hours, we often see role is cast next to a particular character on an agent breakdown. Was wondering if it is legally required for the creative team to share this info, or if it's simply a common courtesy. Truth be told, I have no idea if it's legally required. I really don't have that answer for you. It's a really great question, and I can ask someone. But I think truly, if you see role is cast, whether it's legally required or if it's just a nice thing to do, it means the role is cast. So beyond that piece of the puzzle, there's really no need to know otherwise. If that's a really important question for you to know the like true legal nature of that, I of course can find that out for you and send that info to you privately or answer it next week on office hours. But it's a really, really, really great question, and I don't have the answer for you. So I'll make sure to figure that out and get it to you next week. Does anyone else have questions for me right now? I am looking over here on the side, and I'm not seeing anything yet. Let's see. Great. I'm looking on Facebook to see, guys. I know that I have some wonderful actresses here who are watching with me. And I'm wondering if you guys have any questions. It's pilot season. I know a lot of you are interested in film and TV. You're also theater actors, so please feel free to shoot them my way. I am. Oh, sorry. I just got something. No? Okay. So I can just keep talking. Oh, can you give us any info about, what does this say? I gotta move my little thing here. About pilot season for those of us who are not represented. Awesome. Yes, thank you, Jenny. That is a wonderful question. Are you asking specifically about how to get appointments if you're not represented, or just what pilot season looks like in general? I can talk about any of those things. I know that you are primarily a theater actress. Is it more just kind of a general question about what is pilot season? How does it work from behind? Can you be more specific a little bit? I can talk about appointments. I'll talk about that if you want to take some time to add a little more specificity. Both. Great. Well, that was specific. I'll do both. Great. So all of you know, I'm sure, what pilot season is. It is when all the networks are creating their pilots for the next season of television. So it's when we... Oh, great question. I'll get to that one next. Yeah, so, you know, at any point in time, at least I work for Fox. At any point in time in the office, we'll be working on several pilots, between like 8 and 20 at any point in time, once they're all kind of get going. And I will say, when it comes to not having representation to get appointments for those pilots, it's a little tricky. I talked about this a little bit last week, so you can go back and watch that for sure. I spent about 15 minutes on it, but I can give you kind of the rundown. If you don't have representation, it will be very tricky to get appointments for pilot season, only because so many people with representation will be submitted, and, you know, of course, there are relationships with those office and with those agents and with those actors, and, you know, that's kind of how these things work. But at the same time, like I said last week, that doesn't mean you can't be seen. You just have to be strategic about how to get those appointments. And I think the best way to get those appointments is to have relationships with the casting directors and casting associates in those offices. And the best way to create those relationships is to do pay to play at places like One-on-One, where you can take classes with casting directors and associates and get to know them on a personal basis. A lot of people say that they get discouraged with those classes because they feel like they're paying so much money and maybe not getting a lot back in terms of feedback. But I think the purpose of those classes, more than receiving feedback, which I can say varies a lot from casting director to casting director. It just depends on whose class you're taking. Some people give a lot of feedback, some people don't. But the benefit of those classes truly is to make those relationships, right? And so sometimes what will happen is if you take that class and a CD really reacts to you, really likes you, really enjoys you, they'll keep your headshot and resume around. They'll know who you are. And if you're really right for a project that maybe is super specific and we're not finding the right people from our submissions from agents that we're working with, you might get pulled from a file and come in for an appointment because you have that relationship with that casting director. So, of course, if you're doing one of those classes, you really have to make sure you're serving yourself, right? So you have to show up with a good headshot, you have to show up with a good resume, and you have to show up knowing exactly what it is that you bring to the industry. Because if you can sell yourself and your business, which is yourself, to a casting director, it just is going to make your polished product is going to make more of an impression and puts you in that pile to kind of fill in the appointments that aren't going to actors with agents. Is that helpful, Jenny? Did that kind of answer your question? Is there anything more that you need me to elaborate on? In terms of pilot season, in terms of how it works, if you haven't been in, it's pretty much, an on-camera audition world. You walk in, you do your scene, you're out. There's not a whole lot different from any other. Yes, awesome. Any recommendations for specific classes who? Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to answer this question because it kind of piggybacks off this, and then I'm going to get to your question, Jenna, in a second. In terms of specific classes, I think the way to look at it, instead of me giving you the names of people, is to really do your research and find the casting directors, if you're in LA or if you're in New York. Find the casting directors that are working on material that that really suits you, that works for a network, that is the kind of entertainment that you feel suits you as an actor, fits you. So if you find that you really like the programming on Fox, you think that you might be right for a lot of the shows that go on that network, then you might look who the casting director and the associate are at that network and be sure to take their classes wherever they're teaching. And most of those people, honestly, if you Google casting directors' names and classes, it'll be like, oh, that class is at One-on-One, or that class is, wherever they're teaching. That's, I think, the strongest way to do that, instead of me saying like, oh, this person's good or this person's good. That's clearly going to be an opinion-based thing from, a biased opinion from my perspective. But I think it's more important to think strategically when it comes to film and TV, in looking at the programming that's going to suit you best. If you honestly look at yourself and you think, I am so right for 1,000 shows on the CW right now, then you need to take the time and look and just spend so much time on the Google, honey, the Googles, and look up who the casting directors for these shows are that you think you're right for, and single them out and see where they're teaching and take those classes. You don't need to spend all of your money taking every person's class. It's just not smart. If there are networks that are not filming things that suit you well, do not spend your money on that class. It's not worth it, because you're not going to get called in, because you're not going to be right for those shows. So get your notebook out, write down the top 20 TV shows that you think you are actually perfect for right now. And that means know what your brand is and what does that brand fit into. Then go online, figure out who the CDs and the casting associates are for those shows, and try to find their classes. I think that will benefit you way more than me giving you names of people that I think teach well. I can do that privately too. We can do a coaching and I can help you figure out the people who would suit you best personality-wise. But in general, I think it's smarter to think about the people that will suit you and best serve you, because the truth is, at some point, you need to serve the industry, but the industry also needs to serve you. And if you're going to spend your money, you need to make the connections that are going to best serve you and your career in the future, right? So that is how I feel about that. And it's very clear who casting directors for film and TV are versus theater. I mean, you know that. So, take the time to figure out what movies you like, who's the casting director on those films, and narrow it down to 5 or 6 people, and take 5 or 6 classes if you can afford it. If not, find 2 or 3 people that you think are doing it and really invest in those classes. I think that's going to be the best way to do that. And again, if you need any personalized help on that, we can do a coaching anytime, and I can help you figure that list out. All right, this question. Hey, Kate, how have the casting offices you've worked at responded to unsolicited self-tapes? Do they watch them, hate them? Can you speak specifically to the offices? All right, well, I can't and won't speak specifically to each office that I've worked in. The stuff that happens in those offices is personal and private and different and ever-changing. So I'm not going to use any names, but I will say smaller offices, of course, will always have more of a tendency to watch those things than bigger offices. Personally for me, it's tricky. It depends on the level. It depends on the level of the person in the office who you send it to, and also it just depends on our time, right? Pilot season is crazy bananas. There's not a lot of time. Most people at network casting offices are going to be in their offices from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. working all day. So we barely have enough time to actually look at the tapes that we've requested, the self-tapes we've requested, and also deal with all of the taping of the auditions that we're doing during the day. So the truth of the matter it's going to be really tricky for people to take the time to watch them. If you have a relationship with someone in the office, it's probably gonna, there'll be a better chance of someone seeing it and then passing it along for you. I will say, tricky. In terms of do people hate them? I don't think people hate them. I think that's giving a lot of power to people. I don't think people that I've worked with, at least, or me personally, my opinion, I definitely don't hate them. I mean, that's just a very strong word, and you're giving people power that they don't need. I just think people don't have time for them, is the real truth. And sometimes it comes across as, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? There's not enough time right now. You know what I mean? So I would say, personally, for me, if you were sending something to my office, or if I was the actor in the situation, I would only send an unsolicited self-tape if I have a strong relationship with the casting director, associate, or assistant in the office. That's the only hope that they're going to actually watch it, or if it's an assistant, that they might pass it on to somebody else. If you don't, honestly, it might be a waste of time to send it. They're probably not going to watch it. They might delete it. And if we're giving them the power of hate, it will only put your name on a list of people that they have kind of bad feelings about. Do you know what I mean? So if you get sides and you want to practice them and make a tape because it benefits you, it helps you, it gets something for your reel, or you want to show it to your agent, or those kind of things, I say go for it. There's no reason not to make something, to do the work. It's very beneficial to you as an actor. But I really, really wouldn't recommend sending unsolicited tapes or creating them or spending the time to make them if you don't have a relationship with someone in the office. Does that help? I think I answered your question. Let me know if that was kind of on board. I'm gonna check some stuff while I see if you would. I have a message, so I'm gonna read the question. Oh, good. I'm glad you're with me. Great. I feel so good about that. Another one. Start taking freelancing. Okay, so I just got this question that is, what's your take on freelancing with many agencies versus signing with one, within theater, let's say? Does this frustrate CDs? Okay, well, honey, if people are asking you to, if multiple agencies are on board, I say you are doing something right. Amen to you. You're welcome, Dana. If I don't think, in terms of pissing a CD off, again, I just want to remind people that you're giving a lot of power emotionally to casting directors in that space, and that's something that I did a whole lot as an actor. Was, oh, am I going to make them mad? Are they going to hate me? Is it going to piss them off? I'm sure it is, so I'm just not going to do it. And I think rather than, investing that kind of emotional wealth in these people, just remember there's very little that people do that just makes people angry. I think there are some things that make people sit there and be like, why are you doing this? But seething anger is really not usually one of them. So I'm going to change your verbiage and make it less about pissing them off and more about being smart and strategic. If you're freelancing with a lot of agencies, as someone who's never worked as an agent or as an agent's assistant or any of that, this is all coming from the perspective of a casting person and as an actor. So just remember that when I'm talking about this. If you're freelancing with people, there's the thought in my brain is you're not going to be a sole focus, right, of that agent or that agency in general. And so, you're spreading your wealth for sure. If you're freelancing with a lot of different people, you have 4 different brains thinking about you for when they're looking at a breakdown. However, you have 4 different brains who have an official roster of people that they're really fighting for first. And then you as a freelancer are definitely still a part of that in their brains. But if it were me, and this is, again, just me, just my personal opinion, that is something that is very, very, very personal to an actor, right? Very personal. Do you want to have more of a relationship with one person and be able to have that one person really fight for you in that way and work with you and understand you? Have that one person be your touchstone that you can go to for questions that you feel is really representing you well and submitting you a lot? Or do you want to have several people who have you kind of partially, but perhaps aren't always your touchstone, aren't always submitting you for things? Now, again, I'm not an agent. I have never worked for an agency. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. But in terms of casting directors, we have relationships with agents, of course. That's, par for the course. So there are going to be certain agents that, I'm sure people will look at certain, submissions first or deal with whatever. So, it's not going to piss people off. Either, you get submitted by one agent or 4 agents or no agents, but people do have stronger relationships with certain agencies. That's just kind of how that works. It's this entire industry is based on relationships and relationship building. So, in some respects, if you're with more people, maybe you have more of a chance that one of them is going to submit you. If you work with one person who is really going to fight for you, you might have more of a chance that that one person is going to, submit you. And perhaps if it's an agency that a CD has a relationship with, you might have a stronger chance. But either way, it doesn't piss people off. It certainly doesn't make people angry. If you're submitted and we get to see you, then we'll contact whichever agent has submitted you or manager has submitted you. So, at worst case scenario, you have 4 people who submit you, and truthfully, most of the time, we'll just, we'll contact you via either the first one who submits you or the person, it just depends, truly. So I think that answered your question. I hope it did. It's really personal. I always struggle to answer questions about relationships with agents and managers. Every actor has a different opinion on what kind of relationship they want with the people who represent them. And that's a thing that I think a private coaching where, people can really talk one-on-one with me about, what they're looking for in that kind of relationship is a little bit easier, only because then, I can get to know you. and really understand your wants and desires and needs in a relationship with someone who's representing you. So, I think that, again, it's very personal, and what you're looking for and how you want and who you want to fight for you. So I hope that answered your question. Let's see. Hi, 9 people who are watching. Is there anything that you want me to answer? Let me look here. Check in my tweeties, check in my Facebook. Oh yeah, hi. Great. Oh, I just got a question. All right, what are the best ways to continue relationships with CDs that don't make them go, why are you doing that? But also follow your business model and plan and not giving them all the power. Great. This is a really, really fantastic question. So here's the thing. It varies, of course, from, oh, thank you so much for that. That was very kind. So here's the truth. It varies from office to office, of course. We know this, right? Because some offices are smaller and working on fewer projects and have a little more time, or some offices are very large and working on a bajillion projects and have less time. I touched on this a little bit last week, but I always like talking about this. This industry is very, very relational. We all know this, but also there are tiers and levels of relationship intimacies that are difficult to navigate. So I totally value that we give people, when I talk about giving people power in this industry, I wish when I was younger and auditioning and doing this as from an actor's perspective, I had really understood that every person in this industry really is just a person, no matter what level or what job they have. I talk a lot about us all just being big nerds at the table together. When we step back and think about things like, why are they doing that, coming from a casting director, assistant, associate, whatever, we also have to remember that, like, it's not just those people who think that way. Other actors think that way. Agents think that way. Writers, creatives, lighting directors, like, everyone has an opinion, right? And so that's what I mean by don't give anyone more power than they need to in terms of your emotional wealth of giving and caring. Everyone is going to have an opinion, good, bad, or in between. It's going to vary from place to place and face to face. We know this. So that's what I mean by not giving them power. Now, of course, people who are casting directors at major networks have power. They decide who comes in the room, and that is a power in and of itself. Directors and executive producers and producers have a power because they choose who then comes into the other room, right? That is a power in and of itself. You as an actor have power because you decide what you bring into that room when you walk through the door. Everyone has their established power. Now, in terms of maintaining relationships with casting directors and people like that, in olden days, people sent a lot of postcards and, that kind of thing. And I don't think those are bad. I think you just need to be very strategic about what offices you send them to, what time of the year you send them, things like that. I always recommend a newsletter, right? Here's the thing about newsletters. Everyone can opt out. Right? So there's always an unsubscribe button at the bottom of any newsletter. I use MailChimp for all my people, and I recommend for all of my clients that they use MailChimp. And it's a wonderful way, if you don't abuse it, of contacting people in your life from all levels. I mean, that's the thing you have to remember, is in this world and in this industry, people who work in casting have a lot of power, but they also don't, because a lot of the contacts that you have are fellow peers who are creating, writing, directing their own things, making web series, making work. And it's just as important to stay in contact with those people, those contacts, as it is for you to maintain relationships with people who are the heads of casting for major broadcast, for major networks or for major Broadway shows. So if you can create a newsletter where you put information about what you're doing, that kind of thing, new reels, whatever it is, new, web series that you're a part of, that's a really great thing, especially if you have contact information already for people in those positions of power that you want to reach. Again, because it will go directly to them or to their associate or assistant. You're saving trees. And most of the time with postcards, I've found, except for certain small offices or certain, mid-level offices or whatever, most of the time your postcards really aren't going to be seen. It's pretty much a waste of money. Again, that is my personal opinion. But what I will say is, if you meet someone and you have a great, a really organic meeting in real life, you feel like you're friends with this person, and you want to reach out in the moment and ask them to be friends on Facebook or find them in some sort of social media capacity, follow them on Twitter, I think that's totally A-okay. Going online and kind of stalking casting directors and associates and assistants and stuff and trying to contact them on something personal like Facebook is pushing it, and I really don't think you should do it. But, if you really do feel like you've created an organic, real experience with someone, that's a very different situation. I am very, very much in the kind of playing field that strategic newsletters are the way to go. Sending them once a quarter with updates about what you're doing, and again, sending it to all the people. Not just contacts that are in casting, but anyone that you've worked with, that you've met, that you feel like is a creative person, because so much of how people get jobs and get work in this industry is not through casting. Genuinely, it's you all know this. The game is changing, right? It's people who are creating interesting vlogs or making their own work or having readings in their apartments. These things turn into bigger projects, and if you can get in on the ground level, it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. So I think it's a little bit changing your mindset of who it is that you always need to contact when you're doing kind of relationship building. I think that's really, really important. Again, mailings are fine. And you never know. I worked in one office where it was just the right day, and we were trying to fill a session sheet, and we were looking for people, and we were kind of struggling a little bit, and the right person's postcard showed up on the right desk that day, and they got an appointment. So it really can vary, and just like 87,000% of this career and this industry it was luck. It was the right day. The mail came at the right time. The right person was looking through the pile and made the suggestion, So I think that is also something to take into account. If you are trying to create a relationship with someone that you don't have a relationship with in real life, sometimes it's going to hit and sometimes it's going to miss. Most of the time, it's probably going to miss. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't put the effort into doing that. A lot of people also who are casting directors or work in casting, if that is specifically who you're trying to create a relationship with, again, I always recommend going to classes. There are all sorts of like mixers and things that happen. A lot of people have public profiles on Facebook that are not like personal. It's either the casting office or, a person, a public figure. You can always follow along with those to kind of keep abreast of projects and those kind of things. Follow Twitter accounts. Use social media in any way you can to your advantage to maintain those relationships. I think that's a really helpful tool in order to keep those things. But I do think classes, and then once you've taken a class, I do recommend doing the follow-up, whatever that looks like to you. A follow-up postcard is fine, a follow-up. Just saying, like, thank you so much, it was a wonderful class. The truth of the matter is they might not see it. It might be an assistant who looks at it, but it just shows, maybe it's because I took cotillion for so long. I just think thank you cards are really important. When someone who is very busy working, a normal day takes the time afterwards to teach and do all those kind of things, thanking them for taking the time is always looked at as great. And the other thing I have to remind everybody of, truly, is casting assistants and interns and whatever, the people who are reading the mail a lot of the time, are going to move up. If they stick with it, they keep moving up in the industry, right? They become the associates who become the directors. So even if it's an assistant who's reading the mail, if they remember that you've done something kind like a thank you note, or if they're intrigued by whatever your postcard was, or the newsletter that they read or whatever, they might remember you, store you in their brain, and when they're the ones who are in charge, it might serve you well. So, that's just another thing to remember. Everyone that you meet might be able to serve you later down the line. So whatever it is that you put out and represents who you are, I think that is something to remember as very important. No matter who you're talking to, you never really know who that person is in that moment and who they might become, right? It's just kind of smart strategically. That I rambled a little bit, but I think I answered your question. Oh, that's kind. Thanks for the tweet, Jenna. So I think I answered your question. Did I answer it? Just let me know in the comments. Let me see. I think I got another question here. Maybe I didn't. Oh, good. I'm so glad it was a good answer. Great. Okay, does anybody else have a question for me? I'm here and I'm willing to answer anything, and I can, of course, not exaggerate. I can continue the conversation about any of these questions. While I'm waiting for another question, if anyone has them, I do want to touch base just again, kind of quickly. I'm just checking my Twitter really fast because it looks like I have a notification. Oh no, it's just that wonderful retweet. Okay, I do want to talk really quickly about the giving of power again to people in this industry. The reason I started office hours to begin with was because I was thinking to myself, I was taking a shower and I thought, I wish there had been someone when I was 16 years old who I could ask anything to and they would answer freely and not laugh at me about this industry, because I had so many questions, and the truth is I had questions and I had no one to talk to about them, and those questions started to become fears, and those fears became crippling, and then I just stopped myself from doing what I wanted to do at the time. And that was really devastating to me. And a lot of those questions I realized a lot of them gave power to other people. And so I just really want to talk until I get another question. I do want to answer your questions wholeheartedly, but I really, really do want to talk about understanding your power before giving it to other people. As artists, everyone who works in this business, in this entertainment industry, has a love for artists and for art, or they wouldn't be here, right? People express it in different ways. Some people have business minds more than tap dance brains, and so they kind of go to the production side or to, behind the scenes experiences. But everyone loves art, and everyone believes in art, or they wouldn't do it. There are so many other careers that people could have where they can make more money and have more power and do all the things. So what you have to respect about yourself and about other people is that at that core base, that gives us all the same power, right? Or it should in some respects. And I understand as an actor, you feel like there are so many hoops that you have to jump through that you have no control over. And truly, I mean, that's the truth. There's a lot that you can't control. But you signed up for that as an artist. We all signed up for that. Knowing that just because you have a story to tell doesn't always mean you can tell it in the arena that you want to tell it in. But that doesn't mean that you don't have the power to tell it. And so I just really like to remind people and empower people from a place of, we live in the best time to create and be creative. We have the abilities to do things like this, where I get to sit on my couch and for free communicate with however many people show up, and share my art. And this is my art. The art of helping people and the art of helping people in this industry is how I am creative. So you do have power. And the thing that I like to remind a lot of people of is, the way people are getting agents, the way people are getting noticed by casting directors, a lot of that is coming from people who are creating their own material and producing their own things. So if you feel like you're stuck, or people aren't responding to you, or you can't get representation, or you can't do this, that, and the other, I want you to take the time to figure out what story it is that you have to tell and the lens with which you have to tell it, and just tell it. Find a way to do it. Major motion pictures are being filmed on iPhones, and I know you have phones. So, take the time to do that. And in doing that and being creative in yourself, you find this quiet power that kind of lets the other power of other people disappear a little bit. There's always still that rationale and that knowledge of the people with the money have a little more power. But when you can find that quiet power inside of you that says, this is my art, this is what I do, this is how I present it, and you're the privileged one person behind the table to get to view it, it changes the game. And I never found that when I was an actor. If I'm being vulnerable and tell you the truth, I never found it, because I just wasn't aware that that was a thing you could do. I wish I had known that, and I hope that you all do, and I hope that you feel empowered to kind of let some of the other go and create on your own, and then allow us to view it, be proud of it, be excited about it, and then we can work together. I just got another question, so I'm going to look at that. It says, I know you said you never worked for an agent, but I think it's still your advice applies. Okay. I met with this agent in the fall and never got a definitive yes or no, and then radio silence. Do you think it's too passive to follow up in an email now that it's 2016? I understand that rosters always change and people get injured or pregnant or move to LA. Okay, great. I might have read that too fast. Oh, you guys, that's so nice of you. People are saying that I'm talented and I'm a great. I appreciate that wholeheartedly. But what I will say before I answer this question is talent is not the business. I would agree. I have trained a lot. I love performing. I think I'm very talented. The business is not necessarily about talent. It's about being able to find that quiet power that I'm talking about and utilize it. It's about making connections and not letting the fear overtake you. It's about a lot of other things that are way more important than talent. Not way more important, but things that if you don't know how to control them and work through them, you're never going to be a professional at it. So I very much appreciate your question or your compliments. I take them, I receive them, I'm so grateful for them. But it's about so much more than talent. And when I was trying to do it professionally, I was not able to let the crippling fears of judgment subside. And I think that's why I realized no matter how talented I am, I've either got to create my own stuff and be able to have control in that way and find my power, or I had to step aside and utilize my gifts for other things, which is not quitting. For anyone out there who feels like there's just so much happening that they can't control as an actor, and they have other gifts, but they don't want to stop because they're afraid they're a quitter, I just don't think you're a quitter. I think utilizing the skills that you've received from your training, from you as an actor, and putting them into other gifts within the industry is a wonderful thing. You have to be happy with you every day. When you wake up, you have to be happy with you. Doing things that scare you is important, but making a career out of things that scare you, unless you're jumping out of airplanes, I don't know if that's the right choice. So I just think honoring who you are, honoring what gets you best through the day and how you can best serve yourself and other people is just so important. But thank you. I appreciate your kindness. I am very grateful. And my education in the arts is very grateful for your compliment. I'm going to answer this question that I got about this specific question about meeting with an agent, not getting a definitive yes or no, and it's been since the fall. Do you think it's too passive to follow up an email now that it's 2016? I understand that rosters always change and people get injured or pregnant and move to LA. All right, if you had a meeting with an agent and they didn't say like, thank you, no thank you, and you haven't heard back from them, I don't think it's passive at all. In fact, I think that's active to take the minute to write whoever you spoke with and say, hey, it's me, it's pilot season and I'm just checking in, or I'm here, I'm ready to work. We haven't spoken, excuse me, I need a sip of water. We haven't spoken in a while. And I just wanted to check in, especially if you have something that you've done in the fall, like, you know, if you were in a show or if you filmed a web series or something, especially if it's like media that they can click on, if you have pictures or if you have a video of you performing or a video of you in a web series or a TV show, whatever, embed it in the email and say like, hey, I'm so excited that, you know, I got a chance to speak with you. I just wanted to share with you that I did this show in this place and I have this video for you. Would love to catch up, and am always excited about possible partnership with you. You know what I mean? Something simple like that. I think it's not passive at all. It's the best way to get in contact with someone, especially if you did have a one-on-one meeting with a person. Take the time, email them, but make it strategic. I mean, this is the thing I always say to everybody. Don't waste anybody's time. Just don't do it. There's no time to waste, right? Like, especially right now, agents are aflutter with tons of, you know, auditions for major shows coming up and tons of pilots, and, you know, TV is going crazy, right? So if you want to get in contact with an agent right now, especially one that was a little wishy-washy perhaps, and who, you know, you want to work with, make sure that your email serves you well. Make sure you've attached an updated headshot and resume. Make sure if you have any media to present to them that would be new and different, that it's embedded in that email, that they can quick click and they'll see it. And be very strategic about saying, you know, I had a wonderful time in that meeting with you. I really look forward to discussing our relationship further. But be as professional, as concise, and as helpful to yourself as you can be. You know, the worst case scenario, the person just deletes the email, you never hear back from them, and, you know, nothing happens. Best case scenario, they're like, oh my God, I totally forgot. Let's be best friends and let's work together, you know? So at some point, I think it's wonderful. I think you should absolutely write them, definitely. But again, I will say and reiterate 1,000 times, if you are going to be in contact with someone who can help further your career in any way, shape, or form, even if it's just a peer, never waste your time. And that means you have to make a quick, concise email with clickable links and updated things like headshots and resumes that make the email worthwhile, right? Because people check them so quickly and they want to see things fast. I always say make it quick and dirty. Like they want to see it fast or they don't want to see it at all. And that doesn't mean they won't spend time with it, but no one, unless you're really doing a search where you need to spend a lot of time searching, all I want is things to be quick, concise, and updated. And that goes for everything, not just emails. Your website always needs to be updated, and you have to have one, period. There's no excuse anymore to not have a website. You can even do them for free. Like, you have to have a website, and you have to be able to contact someone. You have to have updated headshots and resumes always. And it has to be pretty easy to find. So, you know, digital presence is so wildly important now. Whether that's good, bad, or in between, it just is the truth. So if you are going to email someone, the email also has to have a quick link to your website, a quick link to your social media. It needs to be as pumped up and specific and updated as possible. So I hope that answered your question. I think it did. I definitely think you need to write that agency that you had a meeting with, and, you know, be specific and be helpful. Again, always if you're contacting someone, the email needs to serve you, right? It needs to serve your business. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. If it wasn't, or if you have a further question, you can just write me back. Okay, when you're going through the process of branding, which can take some time, how okay, not okay, annoying is it if your marketing materials are changing often while you're working right to get it? All right. This is a wonderful, wonderful question, and I am so glad that you asked it. So a lot of what I spend my time doing is coaching sessions with people. I call myself a professional fairy godmother, and I meet with people one-on-one and try to help them figure out their brand and, you know, how they can best. I'm kind of getting over the term brand. It's like, we get it, you need a brand. What I really like is helping people figure out exactly what story they have to tell, and what lens it is that they tell their stories through, and how to best show that to other people. And so a lot of what I do is sit down with people and try to help them figure that out. I think it's really important before you start spending money and contacting people to know what that is. And honestly, you can only make a first impression once, and you can only reinforce that first impression once. I mean, that's like the harsh truth of this world, is that there are people that I've met and within 2 minutes I was like, oh my God. And there are people that I've met and within 2 seconds I'm like, oh my God. And the difference between those two things is like, I don't care what your brand is. I don't care what story you have to tell or how you tell your story. As long as when I look at you, I know, oh, that's so genuine. That's genuinely who they are. Like, and it could be like, you are crazy, or like, you have no energy, or, you have a very specific agenda. But if it's organic to who you are, it's so wildly impressive, because God, that is the hardest thing in this world to be. Right? I mean, that is the hardest thing in this world to be, is truthful about how you see the world and what story it is you have to tell. So I think it's really important to know who you are, to know what that is before you start sending out a lot of materials. A, it's a waste of your money and time, and B, you really need to be strategic about, creating that professional image first and foremost. Of course people change. God, if you had talked to me 5 years ago, this is not what you would have seen, right? Of course, everyone is changing all the time, and that is very true. And you have to keep updating things as you age and as you get older, of course. But there should always be a through line of what you have to give and what story you have to tell from start to finish. So I think that might answer your question. In terms of marketing materials, I think until you really figure out exactly what it is, what story you want to tell, don't invest your money in things. Keep it simple, stupid. That's what I always say. Just keep it simple. Until you really know exactly what it is, make it as simple as possible. And then once you figure it out, really, really, really use that knowledge to your advantage and take the time to make some new first impressions. Tell me if that was helpful. I have another question here. How often do casting people take self-tapes seriously, and what are absolute no-nos? I just feel like, because every time I send one in, people are like, LOL, nah, because they don't feel my energy in a room, and I'd love to figure out how to make that better. Does that make sense? Yeah, of course that makes sense. We talked a little bit about self-tapes earlier. I'm not going to repeat that kind of stuff. You can go back and look at that. It was around the 15-20 minute mark, I think. But what I will say about self-tapes, all right, energy in a room is so wildly important. Hold on, I have to take a drink. Woo! Okay, energy in the room is so crazy important. We know this, right? Because that thing I was just talking about, that energy from your perspective, your story, your lens. Thank you, Jenny. Is really easy to feel when you're in a space. Self-tapes, it's pretty tricky. It's pretty tricky to feel that, because you have a camera on you and you know it, and you don't get to have that banter, you don't get to answer questions, you don't get to ask the CD how's your new baby? None of that stuff happens. So I feel you that it's tricky. First things first, I don't think most casting assistants, associates, directors are sitting around going, LOL, now, just so you know. Well, maybe every once in a while, but it's very, very, very rare. I think with self-tapes, a way to make them, when you say take them seriously, self-tapes are definitely taken seriously, especially if they've been requested. If your agent gets a request for a self-tape, or I do work for Celebrity Cruises, and I help them with their casting. We get a lot of submissions from a lot of places across the country, and we're looking very specifically for new, interesting, raw talent who sings pop rock. And that, we don't find a lot of that in New York, and we find it a lot of other places. So if you get a self-tape request from an office, they usually don't request it unless they're really going to take it seriously. Some absolute no-nos, I think, for me, are when people try to be shticky about things to make themselves stand out more. Sometimes if you have a personal relationship, I have a personal relationship with some actors that I've requested tapes from And like they know my sense of humor, and so they can kind of play into it, and I think that's okay. But like if you don't have a relationship, in fact, to be fair, I've had some people who have sent me like the campiest stuff, and it's hilarious because I know them, because I've worked with them, because I've cast them. They know what I love, and so like they're like, I'm gonna do silly things, and I'm like, I love it because you're my friend. But like if you don't have a relationship with someone, don't do that. Just don't do it. Like don't be campy. Don't try to be silly or stupid to like, you know, make yourself stand out. It's kind of annoying. You know, we don't have the time, and what we want to see is what we've requested. So I think being as, you know, truthful as you can in your slate at the beginning, you know, just being the hardest thing in the world, just be yourself. But truly, like, don't try to do things to make yourself stand out in a way. It comes across kind of as corny or cheesy or not unprofessional, in my opinion. Again, this is all just my opinion, but I think it's a lot of other people's opinions too. So those are kind of my absolute no-nos. Also, like, if you've been given sides for a specific thing, or if you've been asked to sing a specific type of music, don't waste people's time. Don't do something different, right? Like, if you've been asked to sing pop rock, don't sing a Jason Robert Brown song. Like, that's not serving the audition, right? If you've been asked to do a specific piece of choreography, like the video has been sent for you to do, don't send a link to other dance stuff unless you've specifically been given permission to do that. Because the whole point is we need to see you doing the specific choreography, right? So take the time to find a way to do it. I mean, I'd rather see you doing the choreography in your bedroom, truly, and I've had people send that stuff to me. That's great. That helps me because I need to see how your body moves to this specific person. And if you're showing me, you know, a tap number from Anything Goes, and I'm asking for choreography that's a lyrical ballet from Mia Michaels, like, that's not going to serve your audition well. So really looking at what the material that you're asking to perform is, and actually doing that is the ultimate no-no if you don't do that. It's annoying. It wastes people's time. It wastes your time, because if I start seeing that, I'm like, well, I don't even need to watch this. It's not what we asked for, right? So really, like, taking the time to look at what it is that people are requesting from you, and doing that is absolutely important. And I cannot tell you how many times I've received self-tapes where we're so specific. I mean, like, specific sides, specific choreography, and people sing other things, or people do other dances, and I'm like, what are you doing? We've done the work for you. Come on. That's infuriating, and it's a definite no-no in my book. Well, the other part was, I just feel like every time I send one in, people are like, no, because they don't feel my energy, and I'd love to make, how does that make sense? Okay, in terms of, like, getting your energy into things, I think the truth is, how you perform the material is your energy, right? Like, that's what makes different artists different. That's what makes different performers different. And it's our job, right? Like, casting directors, people who work in casting, it's our job to be able to read your energy and to read your energy through your performance. It's what we do all day. We watch people, we meet people, we gauge their energy and how they are in a room, and then we gauge, you know, their energy through their art. So we can see it. Even if you don't get the banter, even if you don't get the questions, we really can see it. So I think if you focus on the work and focus on how you can best bring yourself to the work, that's the best way to make people take it seriously, to be excited about receiving it. I mean, I can't tell you, I've received some self-tapes where I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, you know, the great thing about self-tapes is you get to do them again and again and again until it's exactly what you want to send. What a gift, right? Like, when you come into the room, you get to do it maybe at most twice, 3 times if you're, like, super lucky, or if you really mess it up, you know? So what a gift. You get to look at it and see what best serves you, and then send that as the final project. So, final product, not project. So I think that is probably the most important way to do that. Does that make sense? Was that helpful? I hope it was. Let me know, and if you have follow-up questions, I can answer it. We have, like, about 5 minutes left. I'll go a little over 6 since I was a little behind at the beginning. If you have a last question, if anyone has a question, I would love to answer it. I'm just gonna check my webbies here, and and make sure I haven't missed one. Let's see. No. All right, anything on the Tweeties? Yes, no. Oh, good. Great. Okay. Anyone have any last questions? We are wrapping it up. We talked a lot about self-tapes today. We talked a lot about, I got a question. This is going to be our last question for the day. Do you recommend often watch if an actor sends 2 takes? Maybe slightly different interpretations of the character. That really, really, really depends from office to office. My recommendation is look at the breakdown that you've been given and really read it and really see what it's telling you. Read between the lines, right? When you're reading a breakdown, people are sometimes not very specific, but there are a lot of clues given based on context of what's being said. So it's hard because one of the benefits, of course, of going into a room is that someone can be like, ooh, that is not the direction we're going. Do this. And so then you have the opportunity to do it again. And of course, that is the tricky thing with self-tapes. Clearly, that's what you're asking is like, should I send 2 takes? You can. People might stop watching it truly. If you really feel like you've done 2 wildly different takes, you can always even say at the beginning, like, during your slate, hey, I'm providing 2 takes. The first one is more of a quirky take. The second one is more of a serious. I wasn't really sure what you guys were looking for. Skip ahead to a 108 to see, the more serious version. That might be helpful if, especially if it wasn't asked for or you have no sense of direction. Because people might just stop watching. If they've seen the first 30 seconds and they're like, oh, that's so quirky, that's just not at all what we're looking for, they might just stop. And if you tell them up front, like, here's what I did, because I didn't know, so skip to 108 if you're looking for a more, nerdy read, that might be helpful. It certainly would be helpful to me if you sent it to me, because then I could be like, oh, great, we're not looking for the nerdy read, we're looking for the sexy read. I'm going to go to 108 and watch it. But again, if you take the time to really look at the breakdown, and if you have an agent and you're doing a self-tape, your agent can also always contact us and say like, hey, just checking in about this, what are you really looking for? We might not answer, we might not have the time, but that's something that you could also always try. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the best way if you're trying to do 2 takes. Just make sure you know the difference in what you're doing. That's the other thing. If there's not enough of a difference, don't send them. I mean, if you get a breakdown, though, that says, like, 20, shy, nerdy, computer IT person, you need to make a decision of what that person means to you and do that. Because that's pretty specific, right? If something is just like 20s, Caucasian, pretty, well, that's like a little bit more vague, and maybe that's when it's appropriate to do the 2 takes that you want and to explain what they are. Again, people might not watch 2. People might not have a preference, and they might watch the first one and be like, meh, and be done. Or they might be like, oh, amazing. But if the breakdown is specific enough, then make the one choice, make it a strong choice, and send that. I think that will serve you better as an artist. It makes you look less wishy-washy. It makes you look like you know what you're doing, what you believe this character to be, and I think that speaks highly of you. So I hope that was helpful. Great. It looks like it was. You said thanks, so I hope that's great. Okay, it's 7:01. I had a great time today. Reminder, if you like what you see, come back next week, share it with your friends, subscribe on my YouTube page, find my Facebook page at Office Hours with Kate Lumpkin, and if you want to work one-on-one with me, I do Skype sessions all over the country, and I meet one-on-one in New York to do private coachings on all sorts of things, branding, and your journey and creating a path for yourself. So I'm here. I am always going to be a touchstone and always be a resource for you. If you have any questions throughout the week, feel free to email them to me, tweet them at me, or send me a private message on Facebook. I would love to answer them next week. I hope it was helpful. I hope you have a great night, and enjoy this blizzard if you're in New York. See you next week. Bye.